clearly I don't have the same hairdresser that Alien Page has, which is why we're going to live with whatever this hairstyle is in this video. Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and we return once again to my very first TV series review I did on this channel, namely The Umbrella Academy. Once again, I dressed up for the occasion, this time dressing up as Viktor, in case it wasn't clear, because we all know I like to do a little cosplay if I can. So this is going to be a full-on spoiler review of season 3 of The Umbrella Academy. So I'm gonna spoil everything, I'm gonna talk about all the characters, the stories, everything. And I'm gonna structure this like I did all of the other videos. I'm going to talk about my general thoughts on the story overall, and then I'm going to cover each of the siblings individually to sort of address how I like them personally and their stories within this season. So that's it for the introduction, let's get on with it. Okay, general thoughts on season 3. Overall, I enjoyed it, though I would say that I didn't enjoy it as much as the previous 2 seasons. First of all, I do like the general setup and you know, the general story that we have in this season. I sort of like that it's set all at this mostly like 1 or 2 locations. It's mostly just the hotel or the Sparrow Academy house. So I sort of like that it's limited because they made it work really well. It felt a bit claustrophobic, but not too much, and it made it feel a bit more personal to see how, because all of the characters were more confined and together all the time. So I did like that. I also did enjoy the general premise and idea of the Sparrow Academy having a bunch of new siblings around. Though I do have some problems with the Sparrows, which I'm going to talk about later when I talk about the characters, because I felt like they could have been implemented better in the overall story. But in general, I did enjoy sort of some of the new characters we got to see, even though some of them got some more highlights than others did. And I definitely did not enjoy the Sparrow characters as much as I did the Umbrella characters, naturally. But I think that was basically undoable because, I mean, we've spent so much time with the Umbrella Academy characters, so of course we're going to like them more than the Sparrows, especially since the Sparrows are set up to be the villains. But I do like how they're trying to, they sort of started out with a rivalry, but there's also some like interconnectedness and some interpersonal stuff going on. So I did like that the rivalry wasn't like the whole plot for the 10 episodes. So they sort of tried to handle multiple things, one of which was the whole Kugelblitz thingy, because of course, once again, the world is ending, and at this point I'm just thinking, okay, that's probably going to be like the plot for every single season of the Umbrella Academy. That's just what they do. They save the world, or try to save the world at least, from the apocalypse. But I kind of appreciate that this time it's not Viktor who is responsible for this, but something completely else, basically something they themselves have caused. So picking that up once again, but I like how they're still trying to like do it in a different way each time, because I know I complained during season 2 that, okay, we're doing the apocalypse again, but at this point I'm kind of realizing, okay, that's a theme they're doing. Sort of having an apocalypse each season. That's just what they're doing. But I didn't mind it so much this time because they really changed the game with this one, and the setting felt a lot more different and what they had to do, and it wasn't just about Viktor causing the apocalypse, but something they have actually done themselves, and it has to do with time travel. So I sort of appreciate that. It felt a bit different. I did like that this time around they tried to team up a bunch of different siblings. For example, there's a lot of Klaus and Five stuff in this season, which I enjoyed a lot, because again they take like these rather unlikely pairings, but I think they make them work rather well, and I like that they try to do this differently, like sort of each season, and also in multiple episodes in this season 3 now, that they try to pair up different siblings we maybe have not seen that often like together as a team. So I kind of like that we get some new dynamics here and there I haven't seen before. Some, like, most of the characters get new character development, which I'm gonna come back to when I talk about the sibling characters, which I appreciate. Most of these developments were very interesting, some of them very unexpected, some of them, oh boy, we need to talk about Allison, basically, kind of thing. But at least I'm appreciating that trying to do something new with these characters, whether if that's good or bad, you probably have to see for yourself. But at least I can kind of appreciate that they're trying to do something new with these characters. Well, to have them interact with the Sparrow siblings, not as much as I would have liked them to, if I'm being honest. But at least there are some new chemistries and dynamics in the season that we haven't seen before, which is always good. So overall, that I think works fine. And I like the hotel setting and the mystery that's set up there, especially also how it has to do with Reginald, and we're going to talk about Reginald because I thought he was one of the more interesting characters this season. But overall, I have to say, while I enjoyed most of it, I enjoyed the first half of the season, I would say, a bit more than the second half, which also has a lot to do with the character development we get of like 1 or 2 specific characters, which I didn't like that much. Some developments that happened where I was like, I really don't like where this is going. Again, we have to talk about Allison. And in the end, it ended somewhere with like the whole siblings almost dying and Allison being the only one who gets a happy ending. Again, we're going to talk about that when we talk about Allison. That when I finished it, I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I was like, I'm not sure. I genuinely thought all of them are dead. I genuinely thought all of them are dead and Allison is the only one who survived or something. But clearly hopefully that's not what's happened. But it felt me a little bit, I felt very undecided when I finished it. I was like, good, bad, I'm not sure. There's some stuff in there I was like it just didn't feel 100% satisfying when I finished season 3. I was just like, I don't know, could be better, maybe could be better. I don't know, there was just some stuff in there I was like, okay, maybe we didn't need to spend that much time on that, maybe we could have done that differently. I know it's hard to explain without any specific, it's more like of a general feeling that there was just, again, overall enjoyed it, but just like the overall feeling compared to season 1, season 2 was just like a little bit more, if you know what I mean. But again, nevertheless, like I said, I enjoyed it overall, and I'm gonna get more into detail as I talk about these characters. But overall, okay, not as good as season 1 and 2, but I think there's still a lot of good stuff in there. Okay, now it's time to talk about the characters where I get into a bit more detail, and I want to start off with the Sparrows, just the Sparrows in general. I like the general idea of the Sparrows, that we get new siblings, that we get to see new powers, and how basically an alternate version of the Umbrella Academy could have played out in a different timeline. So in general, I really like this idea. The problem with the Sparrows is they're all assholes, or I don't really like any of them. The only one I kind of liked was Faye, because I thought she had a really cool power and looked kind of badass in her outfits. She was kind of the only one I liked. And even then she didn't really get that much development or interaction with any of the Umbrella characters. Mostly she got to interact with Ben and some of the other siblings in the Sparrows. But overall, like the Sparrows over the course of the series die, which is also sort of a problem because some of them are taken away way too early, where you're like, okay, we didn't really get to know any of them. And I'm going to be honest, I can't even remember some of their names. So, for example, 2 of the first Sparrows that die is the weird poison girl, and the other dude who you can punch hard and it reflects back on you. These 2 die quite early. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really care about them anyway. And like I said, they're all assholes. I didn't like any of them. They were very unfriendly. They're clearly framed to be the villains. And they don't really... I think the show doesn't make enough of an effort to get the viewer invested in the Sparrows as characters, so that when they do die, you're like, oh no, I actually kind of like them. Because that doesn't happen. Number 1 is the first one who dies, the leader, who I thought had a lot of potential as a character, because I really liked his interactions with Viktor in the first 1 or 2 episodes. But then he dies. Like, he's the first one to die. You're like, okay, that kind of sucks. But I get that it kind of kickstarts some of the other interactions and how Ben is pushed into that leader position at that point. But again, the more of them die, and you're like, we didn't really get to spend time with them, and they were all portrayed up to that point as assholes anyway, who were really mean to the main characters we do like. So why the hell should I like the Sparrows? So I know Sloane is portrayed to be kind of the nice Sparrow, and I'm going to talk more about her and Luther's relationship when I get to Luther, because I really didn't like the relationship that much, because it basically came out of nowhere. It was love at first sight, or attraction at first sight, I should say, and it didn't feel natural, didn't make any sense to me, and Sloane was just like your typical nice girl, pretty girl character who gets to be with one of the main characters. So I wasn't really invested in her either. Again, I wasn't invested in the relationship, so I didn't care about Sloane. Like I said, Faye is the only one I thought was kind of interesting, but that was probably mainly because I liked her sort of aesthetic in general. There's Christopher. Christopher is a cube. He's not a character. Christopher's just a cube. This whole time I was asking myself, how does Christopher work? Was Christopher born as a cube? Like, was he a person once and then turned into a cube? Can he turn into human form but chooses to stay in cube form the whole time? I don't know. I feel like these would have been some interesting questions to explore, but that didn't really happen either. And the last Sparrow, who is arguably the most important, is Ben. Evil emo Ben, who I hated because he's an absolute wanker in this. And they don't really give him a chance or an opportunity to be nice, to have some kind of character development where you can warm up to him. No, he's just like abrasive, harsh, impolite, and just all around twat the whole time, throughout the whole season. And the entire time I was like, oh my god, shut up, Ben. I hate you so much. He's just so negative and antagonistic, but like in a really mean and uninteresting way the whole time. Even though I get that they wanted to keep the actor around, which I appreciate, and the actor did a great job. But I was like, he could have done more with Ben. I didn't like him the whole time. And towards the end, when they tried to explain to you that, oh, he's kind of jealous of the Umbrellas because, you know, they have good sibling dynamic and he wanted to be invited to the bachelor party and all that. I'm like, where did that come from? To me, that didn't really shine through most of the season. And I feel like they could have introduced that as a theme for Ben much, much earlier to make him more interesting, to sort of make him warm up to some of the siblings. Because you do see him warm up during like the wedding party when he, you know, okay, he does get pissed. But, you know, you feel like, okay, maybe he's starting to warm up to them. But no, the evening goes by and he goes back to being an asshole, even though it's also very heavily implied that he might have had sex with Klaus. So I was like, are we gonna dwell on? No, okay, we're not. Because, I don't know, maybe that would have been an interesting dynamic, because, you know, Klaus was used to seeing Ben for years, and now he has a Ben there, but Ben is an arsehole. I mean, Klaus also explains it to evil Ben at some point. But they don't really take the effort to make Ben a character I want to be invested in. He's just an arsehole. And at the end, he's still an arsehole. And I was like, I'm sorry, Ben, but I just don't care about you. What I thought was interesting about this alternate version of the Umbrella Academy was their father, Reginald Hargreeves. I was more invested in Reginald Hargreeves as a character and his development than any of the Sparrows, if I'm being honest. Because I was like, oh, this Reginald is actually kind of nice, so let's explore that. And they did. And I thought it was wonderful that they paired him up with Klaus, because Klaus, and this is why Klaus is my favorite sibling, he's just willing to give people the benefit of the doubt, and he's willing to like hang out with people, even though other people don't want to, and he's able to relate to them, even though they're weird, and he is able to make like these endearing connections with people. And that's what you got to see in this. So it was really interesting to explore Reginald in this sort of alternate timeline, because you really are led to believe, okay, he's actually maybe kind of nice. He's being suppressed by his kids in this timeline. He's being drugged and beaten down and abused even. So it's kind of interesting to see, okay, what are they doing with him in this timeline? He actually seems to be kind of nice. But then as soon as he sort of starts taking his medicine, you see the old Reginald sort of shining through, and at the end of the day, he is still the villain. But I like that there was sort of a build-up to that, because you really feel like at the beginning of the season, at least that was me, I'm like, okay, maybe this alternate version of Reginald is actually really nice. And then it sort of progresses into, oh no, okay, he's experimenting with Klaus, he's sort of helping, and that's nice, but then it sort of slides into, oh god, no, what is he doing? No, he's going full on evil alien again. So I did like that. He sort of snuck in there at the very end as the ultimate antagonist again, because I think that makes sense, because he basically fucked up both of these families to a degree, maybe one more so than the other, arguably. But I don't know. Again, I was more invested in him than any of the Sparrows, which I don't know if that's good or bad. But I thought Reginald was a really interesting character this season, at least much more interesting than the previous two seasons, because in season 1 he's dead. In season 2 we get him in a couple of flashbacks, and he's the asshole we know him to be, and he gets revealed to be an alien. Was that revealed in season 1? I don't think it was. But like in this season we actually have, even though it's an alternate version of Reginald, we actually do get to see like some proper character progression from him being maybe sort of a misunderstood guy to know he's actually a manipulative asshole to a full-on villain. So I sort of thought it was interesting seeing that. It's nice that it sort of gave him a bit more time to shine, so to speak, as a character. So it was interesting to see Reginald. Okay, now let's talk about the umbrella characters. We're just gonna go through the numbers 1 to 7, except for number 6, because we already talked about Evil Ben. So let's start with number 1, Luther. I did not really like Luther this season, mostly because, and I already mentioned it, I was not a fan of his relationship with Sloane, because it is founded on, in my opinion, absolutely nothing. It's literally Luther seeing Sloane for the first time, and he's immediately like, oh, googly eyes, and they're in love. And she invites him to a room, they have gravity sex, and that's it, and now they're in love. I would have bought this if there had been actual build-up to this, or if there had been some kind of twist to it, because I honestly thought, okay, Sloane is playing him. I thought Sloane is playing him for some manipulative reason, and she's going to betray him at some point. That did not happen. It was just a really boring, cutesy relationship. And I mean, I'm happy that Luther is happy, because Luther does deserve to have a nice relationship. But I'm not invested in that relationship whatsoever. Like, nothing. Because it's founded and based on nothing. It's literally love at first sight. I hate love at first sight, because it's basically just two attractive people looking at each other, thinking they're attractive, and that equals love. And I didn't like it. Just felt so cliche and basic. And I just really wanted Luther to shine this season, because he has a lot of potential, I think, as a character, and I really want to like him, but in every season there's always something where I'm like, Luther, something keeps holding you back from me really, really liking you as a character. And this time it's a bullshit relationship that I'm not buying, and that's basically all he gets to do this season. And he even sort of, like, he goes against his own family, and decides to bond with the arsehole family, just because his girlfriend happens to be there. And I don't know, like, I did like sort of the wedding episode with the bachelor party. Yes, that was cute. I do like to see all of the guys interact. It's really sweet. And Luther did have some nice interactions with especially Viktor. I thought whenever he talked to him, I thought that was really nice. But he really didn't have the leading position anymore. Like he definitely, I mean, he didn't really have it in season 2, I think, but now he's really lost it. I would argue that Viktor has more of a leading position this season than Luther does. But yeah, I didn't really like Luther this season. I know he has some beef with Allison as well. I'm going to talk about Allison in a minute, because we've got a lot to talk about with Allison. But yeah, overall Luther, I mean, I enjoy the big dumb himbo. I like him. He's a himbo and I want to love him. But they keep giving him story arcs I don't care about or I think are dumb. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to do now in the new season, since he is now powerless. He has a normal body, which I think is going to be interesting. And he's now the one who's lost his spouse, which is what Allison is dealing with in this season. So maybe he's going to go through a similar arc, and we'll see how that moves on going forward. But for now, I just wasn't really invested in it. I could see how maybe some people are, but personally, I just wasn't invested in Luther's storyline and his relationship with Sloane. Let's move on to number 2, Diego, and we're also going to talk Lila while we're at it, because their story is very much one story in this, and I liked it much more this season than I did in season 2. So in season 2, I complained that, oh, cool, Diego gets another relationship storyline. Like in season 1, brilliant. But now, in season 3, they're still kind of running with this idea, but they do it differently. Namely, Lila says, hey, I've had a kid. Here you go, go and be a dad. And just leaves him with the kid, basically. And Diego gets to learn how to be a dad, and I thought it was really interesting seeing him juggle this sort of, classic hero, action hero life with family life, trying to be a good dad. Because at first he really doesn't adjust to it very well. He's like, he doesn't really get it. He just tries to send the kid away because he's getting in his way of doing all of his action superhero stuff. But it was really nice to see him grow into this role of a dad and seeing him adjust to the idea of having a family one day. Which also brings me to his relationship with Lila, because I did enjoy their relationship much more this season than I did in season 2, and I also enjoyed Lila more than I did in season 2, because in season 2 I didn't really like her that much. I rewatched season 2 right before season 3, so I was sort of reminded of some of the details. And I remember I didn't really like Lila that much in season 2, but I did enjoy her more in season 3, maybe because they used her not only for her relationship with Diego, but also she got to do some other stuff. Yes, her main relationship is with Diego and their child. But it was interesting to see like a new element added to this dynamic. And Diego previously was one of my least favorite siblings in the show, because I just didn't think he was very interesting. He felt a bit generic, but I really warmed up to him in this season. It was nice to see him grow into this new role that he really isn't used to. That he has to learn how to juggle, sort of normal family life with the superhero life he also wants to have. And I felt like Diego was a really good champ, basically, this season, because he has a lot of like really nice supportive moments, I think, also like with also with Viktor, a lot of stuff that was going on there, and I felt like Diego had a lot of good leading man moments. So overall, I think his story was definitely a step up from season 2, and I especially liked towards the last couple of episodes where it turns out, okay, Stan wasn't actually his kid, but Lila is actually pregnant, and seeing him sort of be like, okay, I gotta think about it, but then he sort of comes around and is like, okay, no, I do want to be a dad. And it was really nice to see that development, him settling into this idea of family life. Because I was this relationship felt more natural, and development felt more natural than the relationship of Sloane and Luther did. Like Diego and Lila, that was the relationship I was sort of invested in for this season. Also with the dynamic with their child, but also because Stan was a lot of fun. He really does seem like he could be Diego's child, even though he turns out not to be. But I thought there was some really good chemistry going on there, and also the kid did a really good job at acting, I thought, for as long as he was there. So Diego definitely a step up for season 3, and I hope his relationship with Lila can continue, that they do get to have the family, because it would really be interesting to see sort of like one of the umbrellas trying to handle this normal adulting family life, but also trying to be a superhero, or maybe that Diego sort of learns to let go of that superhero shtick he's been going on about for so long, to sort of see him go somewhere else, because that would be an interesting progression to see. So yeah, I thought Diego and Lila were a lot better this season. Okay, it's time to talk about number 3, Allison. Allison is an interesting case this season, because Allison gets a corruption arc, essentially. Allison gets a corruption arc. She becomes, in my eyes, a villain in season 3. She becomes a full-on villain. And while I do appreciate the attempt at a corruption arc, because good characters can go bad, but we don't see that very often in fiction, or at least not done well, this felt so, I wouldn't necessarily say out of place, but it just didn't feel right. Because Allison, out of all the siblings, is like the one character where you think, oh, she's always been so nice and so supportive. Like, she's the one who always makes it through, who's there to motivate people. She's always sort of the rock for everyone, emotional support, but also very strong for herself. She's the one who sort of makes it through and helps other people make it through. Which I guess is why maybe they chose her for a corruption arc, because you wouldn't expect her, out of all people, to turn evil. But some of the things she does in this season are simply inexcusable. I flat out hated Allison by the end of season 3. And I was like, I can't understand why she's angry. Yes, she lost her kid. She had lost her kid before in season 2. I mean, her kid was already lost in season 2. So, she had sort of adjusted to that. And then she also loses Ray, but she also knew that was going to happen, because he's in the 60s. She knew she was going to travel back to modern day. So, of course, Ray isn't there anymore. So I get that she's upset that Claire and her husband are gone. But again, that doesn't excuse some of the absolute bullshit she does in this season. Some of which I think doesn't get addressed all too well. So we might as well get to it. She basically rapes Luther. She tries to definitely sexually assault him, because she rumors him into wanting her. Like, they have a discussion. Luther's already with Sloane at this point. They have a discussion. Some sort of old feelings are coming back up. But Luther is like, no. We're not doing this anymore. I'm with Sloane now, and I still like it, but we're not doing this anymore. And Allison is so pent up in her aggression and her frustration. She rumors him to want her. And he does. They have like a brief makeout session. And it sort of backfires on her as well, where she sort of arguably also gets assaulted, because she's like, no, she like decides to say no, but Luther, of course, is still rumored at that point, so he keeps going, and they sort of break off in this really horrible, absolutely horrible scene. It felt, I mean, that's probably what it was supposed to feel like. It felt absolutely horrible and disgusting, and I was terrified and disgusted by Allison in that scene. And which is arguably what you're supposed to feel in that moment, but the show, I think, doesn't properly address it. Luther at a later point says, oh, you want me to remind you of what you did a couple of days ago? I'm like, yes, we should really talk about that, because Luther basically just got sexually assaulted. Why is this not a bigger thing? I feel like it really should be. And Allison is just so passive-aggressive and antagonistic this entire season, where you can't have one conversation with her saying like a really snappy, mean comment towards anyone, especially towards Viktor later. We're going to talk about that in a second. And after a while, I was just like, oh my God, shut up, Allison, just shut up. I don't care. I just don't care. I absolutely don't care. She's just generally really dislikable. Again, I understand that she's upset, that she lost her daughter, but she acts and reacts in such an entitled way about it. Like she's the only one who's lost someone, or who has something to fight for, to come back to. And she's not. Like Viktor could argue, hey, I lost Sissy. I left Sissy and the quasi-son we had together. And do you see Viktor go crazy about that? No, he doesn't. And I just felt like Allison was so focused on her own problems, was so self-entitled and selfish about them, that she refused to see anyone else. Like she refused to accept anyone else's problems in this season. She refused to care about anyone else's problems in this season. It was only her problems, getting back to Claire, and she was so aggressively insisted about it the whole time, which made her an annoying wanker throughout most of the season. Then we get to the bit with Harlan and Viktor. And she already doesn't like Harlan, because no one seems to like Harlan except Viktor. And I mean, come on, Harlan. We're going to talk about Harlan when I talk about Viktor, but in general, just here, I'm like, who doesn't like Harlan? Like, come on, it's Harlan. But yeah, of course, Allison didn't already like him that much and tries to protect Viktor from Harlan, but wasn't even ready to listen to Viktor, who said, no, this is fine, I can deal with this. And she was like, no, he's killing you, and I'm not gonna let you do this, and I'm not gonna listen to you, I'm just gonna push my own agenda this whole season. And then she finds out that Harlan killed all their mothers, and that Viktor didn't tell her about that. And she goes on a massive tangent that remains for the entirety of the season as soon as she finds out about that, which leads her to do more horrible things. First off, she kills Harlan. When she did that, Allison was done for me. When that happened and she fully admitted to killing Harlan, I was like, well, it's done. Allison, it's done. You killed Harlan, it's done. I don't like you anymore. I absolutely hate you. I already didn't like you, but this was literally the last straw. This was the last straw. Because you killed this nice, innocent, interesting character that we had come to care about. And you took his life. Because you wanted to push your own agenda. You didn't ask anyone, you just did it. You just did it. And it's the same thing that she gets angry at Viktor for, but she just makes the decision by herself and kills Harlan. Which is absolutely horrible. It's absolutely horrible. They all go on about, but especially Allison, that Viktor killed people. But like, with Viktor, it was almost always, I think every time, it was an accident. Because he wasn't able to control his powers. With Allison, she flat out, on purpose, killed this old man because she believed, without talking to anyone, it was the thing to do. It was the correct thing to do in that situation. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Allison, but you don't get to play high and mighty about killing people and making decisions by yourself, and then she just goes and kills Harlan. It just doesn't work that way. And then she gets mad at Viktor for the remainder of the season, basically, because he didn't tell her about Harlan killing the mothers. And Harlan killing the mothers is sort of treated as the catalyst for all the shit that's going down in the season, even though I didn't really get that. Also, I'm gonna be that guy and say they didn't even really know their mums anyway in any of the timelines. So why are they, and especially Allison, reacting so strongly to their mums dying when they didn't even know them in the first place? Like, why do you care? Like, her whole beef with Viktor felt mainly unjustified, or like it lasted for way too long. Like she got, in my opinion, she was way too pissed and angry with him, because I didn't feel like Viktor deserved that. Again, this is where sort of this entitlement plays in, where I think where I think Allison doesn't really see anything or anyone else other than herself and her own problems, and just the hate for Viktor felt way too strong for the reason she had, and to me it didn't feel entirely justified. It made me dislike her even more, and she doesn't come back from that. She turns full-on villain, makes a deal with Reginald, basically gets Luther and Klaus killed. Granted, she didn't know that, but she kind of got involved in it, so it is also kind of her fault. Just some major bullshit evil stuff that I just wasn't into at all, that made me dislike Allison so much. And by the end of the season, she's the only one who gets her happy ending. I don't know if that's in the same timeline. I also thought maybe she's dead and this is her version of heaven. I don't know. But at the end, as far as we know, she is the one who gets her happy ending. She has Claire back, and she has Ray back in the current timeline, apparently. Again, we don't know how real this is, but as far as we know, she's the only one who gets a happy ending. And I'm like, she does not deserve shit. Because Allison was my most hated character this season. I'm gonna say it, Allison was my most hated character by the end of the season. I did not care for her whatsoever. She was dead to me as soon as she killed Harlan. I'm like, I already didn't like you that much, but now you killed Harlan, you're dead to me. You're dead to me, Allison, I don't care. And she just felt like such an unlikable character. It didn't feel like I was going with her on this corruption arc. I felt like a lot of the anger and was unjustified, or what she did wasn't justified by her reasons. I got why she was angry, but that can't be an excuse for so many of the things she did in this season, which is why Allison was my most hated character this season. From my least favorite sibling to my favorite sibling, number 4, it is Klaus. Klaus is always such a delight. Klaus just doesn't disappoint as a character, even though I have to argue this season his storyline doesn't really have anything to do with what's going on in the main plot. So I already talked about this when I talked about Reginald. He gets paired up with Five and Reginald a lot in this season. And I like that because, again, that played into these sort of more unusual character dynamics that we saw in this season. I really enjoyed his sort of road trip with Five that he had, where they tried to find his mother. I thought was interesting. He was sort of the only one who cared about their mums, even though that sort of disappeared a bit towards the second half of the season. And then he was paired up with Reginald, which I think was very clever and a good choice, because Reginald basically pushes Klaus's powers, which I'm so glad finally happened, because I felt Klaus had a lot of untapped potential in his powers. I mean, he finally gets to really embrace that, to see how far he can go. We find out he's basically immortal, which is something I was kind of waiting for, that they would probably do that. We see him being able to face the ghosts, defeat the ghosts, and I just generally really enjoyed seeing him develop his powers further, learning to be more comfortable with himself and who he is and what he can do. And I can't really say that much about Klaus, because again, his story didn't really have a whole lot to do with the main storyline, which you could argue is bad. But then again, it always felt a bit like when we ever cut to Klaus, it was like a bit of a breather, which was nice, because Klaus is usually a more humoristic character, more comedic character, and the actor does a fantastic job. And I was really interested to see him be paired up with arguably more serious characters. But again, this is what I like about Klaus, because he's able to develop very unlikely relationships, because he can just sort of bond with anyone because he's willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. He's willing to come down to their level and talk to them just as normal human beings. He doesn't treat them differently. He doesn't behave differently. And this is why I think a lot of these strange relationships work for Klaus as a character. And I just think it's a general delight to see him, to see him on screen whenever he does something. I really like this sort of trip with Stan, sort of a bit of a character dynamic. And when he was shot, I was like, is Klaus dead now? But then luckily they introduced the afterlife. I really like that we returned to this afterlife with like which felt very different in style to the rest of the show, which I thought was really interesting. Get to see him interact with his mum, and we get to see what sort of the afterlife is like for Klaus when he's there, and this helps him to develop his powers further, which was wonderful to see. And yeah, I can't really say that much, but I like Klaus. I've always liked Klaus as a character, and I think he's always like a really nice, chill, down to earth character to hang out with in these storylines where you just get to take a bit of a breather. Like, okay, cool. Now we do something fun and interesting with this side character. You could argue it would be nice to see him be more involved with the main plot, but I mean, I still have fun watching him, and it was fun to see someone developing their powers further, and out of all people was my favorite sibling, so I had a lot of fun with Klaus this season. Okay, time to move on to number 5. Number 5 is just a general favorite. He just is. I really like number 5. Again, he takes sort of more this leadership position in this, but I also like that in the first couple of episodes we see him basically just be an old man, which I also love in the outfit choices that we see him do, that we see him take, and also like in his road trip with Klaus. I just like that for a couple of episodes really we get to see just 5 indulging in his natural age, which I thought was really, really funny. And again, it's sort of him trying to figure out how they can stop the apocalypse, and he's the one who sort of knows what the Kugelblitz is and what all of that nonsense means. He doesn't really get that much development as a character. We sort of naturally he's the one who sort of gets to travel a bit more, and we see him explore some of the alternate timelines, and we see him interact with his 100-year-old self. We find out he is the one who came up with the commission, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if they play a bit more with that. That would be interesting. But I mean, like I said, in general, 5 is a character who is just interesting to watch. He didn't really do that much different this season. He was very much there to sort of, explain all the time travel stuff and come up with the plans and everything. But it was sort of interesting to see that by the end of the day, he was like, maybe we don't stop the apocalypse. Maybe we don't. We're done with this. I'm just going to kick back and enjoy my retirement. I thought it was interesting. I don't really have that much to say about 5, if I'm being honest. I liked him. I liked him a lot as a character. He gets some funny moments, especially also interacting with his fellow siblings, with the boys, which I thought was cute. Again, we get some more interesting character dynamics. Like I said, how he gets paired up with Klaus a lot in this as well. So in general, I had a lot of fun with 5 again. Okay, and now we come to my other favorite sibling. It's number 7. It is Viktor, and I love Viktor so much. The first thing I have to address naturally is I absolutely adore how they included Elliot Page's transition into the show. It's not treated as like a huge thing. They dedicate like 1 or 2 scenes to this in episode 2. But that scene is, I don't know if it just struck a nerve with me personally, but I cried while watching that. It was just really nice. Him coming in with the new outfit, the new haircut. I was like, oh, cool, nice haircut. What have you been up to, Vanya? And Viktor's just like, it's Viktor now. It's who I've always been. It's like cool with everyone. Everyone's just like, yeah, good for you. And everyone is just so supportive. And it's really just a minor thing in the overall story. But it was just so nice to see that, because I don't know, I first of all, I appreciate how to just include this from real life into this fictional story, but without making it too big of a thing. like I said, it's literally just 1 or 2 scenes. It's Viktor realizing this as he thinks about Sissy. I like that they connected this to Sissy, because in a way Viktor was responsible for Sissy discovering herself, and now Sissy is responsible for Viktor discovering himself. And so I like how they connected that within the fiction. And it just felt very natural. They didn't dwell on it for too long. It was just like, I'm Viktor now, that's who I am. It's cool. And everyone immediately accepted it. And I really liked these little interactions. I really liked how supportive everyone was, especially when Viktor wasn't there and maybe someone hadn't caught up with the news yet. Like, for example, there's this really short but I thought wonderful little interaction between Luther and Diego. When Luther comes back, he's been kidnapped. He's been gone for a while, so he wasn't there when Viktor introduced himself. And he's like, oh, well, since when is Vanya the leader? And Diego is like, it's Viktor now. It's just moments like these where you feel like, oh, it's nice. It just feels good to see this on television. So yeah, I loved how they included that. Again, Viktor in general, I already liked Viktor in the previous 2 seasons. He is, maybe together with Klaus, my favorite sibling. And once again, I think that really shines through in this, because I think Viktor sort of takes on more of a leader position in a way in this. Because, you know, he's the one who tries to make contact with the Sparrow Academy. He's trying to figure out what's been going on. And then, of course, Harlan comes back in. I love that they reintroduced Harlan, because I was hoping maybe they include one of the previous characters from like the 60s who survived up until this day. And I'm so glad it was Harlan, because we immediately have like this little connection between him and Viktor, which was absolutely adorable. And it was interesting to see that Viktor had further developed his powers, that Harlan developed his powers that Viktor had accidentally given to him in season 2. Harlan absolute slays, even though he's not really, like, in a way he's able to control it, but also previously not really, which is how he killed the mothers by accident. But I was really glad that they reintroduced Harlan as a character, even though they could have kept him around for a longer time, I think, before he gets unceremoniously killed off by Allison. But yeah, it was really nice to see Harlan and Viktor interact again, especially now since Harlan is all grown up, and they try to like deal with their powers. And the overall scheme of things, it felt like Harlan didn't really have that much to do. He was really just there to like kill off 2 of the other Sparrows, and then to reveal that he was the one who accidentally killed the mothers, which is basically just, Harlan is there to be the root of the beef between Viktor and Allison, essentially. But I mean, I'm not saying that that was bad, because I loved having Harlan there. Because this gives Viktor also the opportunity to sort of maybe catch up with the past, with what happened in season 2, and it gives Viktor the opportunity to interact with someone who's not one of his siblings. Even though I have to say, again, it was really nice to see people interact with Viktor in this season. I don't know, it just felt nice, especially sort of him interacting with his brothers. Because, I don't know, it just felt really nice. Especially, like I said, the bachelor party I thought was really cute, when it's all the boys sort of hanging out. And I really liked Viktor this season, and I felt like, once again, like in every season, he gets unfairly blamed for a lot of shit. Because I feel like this is what's happening in every season. Viktor gets unfairly or really massively blamed for shit. But I'm like, okay, it's people overreacting, or it's like not even really Viktor's fault, or I don't know. I just really like Viktor. I like my boy, and I feel like he's being treated unfairly in many moments. He's just a really nice comfort character to be around, because he feels realistic, he feels comforting. He has his flaws, but he's always trying to do his best, as I think we can see, especially in this season. And I don't know. Like I said, the beef between him and Allison, I felt was really uncomfortable, and I didn't really get it from Allison's side. And Viktor was even trying to sort of, you know, make up for it. He was like, okay, the world is ending, can we at least be friends again? Just, you know, for these final couple of hours. Like, he was willing to sort of extend a hand, but Allison was just like pissed on it. basically. Also, that's mainly that's personal reasons, but there's this one joke when they all come in for the wedding reception and Viktor is wearing like a button-down shirt and a tie and a waistcoat, and Allison is like, oh, I see you've gone for the oversized button-down style. I'm like, piss off, Allison, piss off. On guys like us, on small guys like us, everything looks kind of oversized. We can't do anything about that. So, I don't know, that just felt a bit personal. So, there you go. But yeah, like I said, overall, I really enjoyed Viktor. I love how they included his transition. I like that Viktor is sort of the one who steps up. He like takes a lot of individual actions, I think, in this season. Tries to move the story forward. Tries to find solutions for things. Gets fairly and also unfairly blamed for a couple of things, but has some really nice interactions with his fellow brothers, which was nice to see, and just basically made it clear for me that Viktor is one of the best characters in this show. Okay, that brings us to the end of this review video. We've talked about all siblings, we've talked about the stories, I've talked for almost an hour. Naturally, there are probably many more things I have forgotten to talk about or I could talk about, so if there are any more questions about Umbrella Academy Season 3, make sure to put them down in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. Also, do tell me, what did you think of this season of Umbrella Academy? Did you like it as much as Season 1 and Season 2? Or, like me, did you think, good, but not as good as the previous ones? Do tell me down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I'll see all of you very soon.